The first time Audrey Hart used my black card to buy her lover a sports car, I approved the charge. That sentence alone is enough to make me sound like an idiot. Maybe I was. No, that is too simple. Idiots do foolish things because they do not see the truth. I saw it. I saw all of it. I saw the transaction alert on my phone while I was sitting in Lab C at Northbridge University, surrounded by sensor boards, solder smoke, and 3 weeks of sleep debt. Apex Motors Northbridge, pending authorization, $. For 18/7/32/19, I saw the amount, I saw the merchant, I saw Audrey's message appear 5 seconds later. Baby, please don't panic, I'll explain later, I just need you to approve it right now. Then another, please trust me. Then another, Derek is here, but it's not what you think. That was how I knew it was exactly what I thought, in my first life. I stared at that alert with my heart beating so hard I could hear blood in my ears. I called her, she answered on the third ring, voice breathless, sweet, and frightened in a way that used to make me forget my own anger. Ethan, she whispered, please don't make a scene. I asked, why are you at Apex Motors? She said, it's complicated. I asked, why is there a $400,000 charge on my card? She said, it's a graduation surprise. I asked, for who? Silence. That silence told me more than her words ever had. Then Derek Walsh's voice came through the background, smooth and impatient. Tell him to approve it, Audrey, we're holding up the paperwork. We, not you, not I, we. Audrey started crying then, not loudly. Audrey never cried loudly when she wanted something. She cried softly, beautifully, in a way that made you feel like the villain if you did not rush to comfort her. Ethan, I can't explain here, she said, everyone is watching. Please, if you love me, don't embarrass me. If you love me. Those 4 words had done more damage to me than any insult. Because I did love her. I loved the Audrey who slept in my old hoodie during finals week. I loved the Audrey who called me before presentations because she said my voice made difficult rooms feel survivable. I loved the Audrey who sat on my kitchen floor eating instant noodles at midnight while I fixed her internship essay. I loved the Audrey who said she did not care about money, only loyalty. I loved a woman who did not exist outside the private rooms where she needed me. So when she said, if you love me, I approved the charge. For 18/7/32/19, approved with one tap. That was the tap that started the collapse. Audrey drove away from Apex Motors in the passenger seat of a red Veyron GT Roadster. Derek drove. He posted the steering wheel before the ink was dry. Graduation came early. Audrey liked the post. 2 weeks later, she broke up with me in a coffee shop and said she needed someone who could stand beside her publicly without making her feel guilty for wanting more. 3 months later, Derek crashed the car outside a private club after a donor party. 6 months later, the insurance dispute became a legal mess, because the payment source, registration paperwork, and authorized user terms did not match the story Derek wanted to tell. Audrey said I had approved the purchase because I was trying to keep her. Derek said I had used money to insert myself into their relationship. Their lawyer called the car a coercive gift. A coercive gift. The phrase made me laugh the first time I heard it. Then it appeared in writing, then it appeared in a university review file, then it appeared in a background discussion around my graduate fellowship. Nobody said I had committed a crime. That would have been easier to fight. They said things like, the circumstances are unclear, there are interpersonal financial concerns, there may have been inappropriate pressure, the university must be careful before endorsing students involved in unresolved disputes. Unclear. That word became a slow poison. My research fellowship was delayed. My startup accelerator slot was quietly withdrawn. My advisor, Professor Elaine Harper, fought like hell for me, but even she could not make people unhear rumors they found convenient. My father's legal team eventually unwound the financial mess. They recovered part of the money after the insurance case settled. They cleaned the account. They cleared me. But money can be recovered faster than reputation. People forgot that Audrey used my card. They remembered that I was involved. People forgot that Derek crashed the car. They remembered that I had approved the purchase. People forgot that I saved Audrey for years. They remembered that she cried when she left me. That was my first life. It did not end in one dramatic death. It ended in small doors closing, a fellowship that chose another candidate, a venture investor who said, we love the work, but the personal financial dispute creates noise. A professor who avoided meeting my eyes because she believed me but had no power left, a job far below what I had built, a quiet apartment, a body intact, but a future reduced. Years later, I saw Audrey once at an alumni event. She was divorced from Derek by then. He had burned through his father's patience. 2 startups, 1 trust account, and several people's goodwill. Audrey stood across the room in a black dress, older, thinner, still beautiful in a tired way. She saw me, she walked over. For a second, I thought she might say something useful. Instead, she whispered, "I'm sorry, I didn't know he would turn it all on you." That was when I understood she had still not understood. It was not that Derek turned it on me, it was that she had handed him the weapon. That night, I went home in the rain. My phone buzzed with an old banking notification I had never deleted from my cloud archive. Apex Motors Northbridge, $418, 732.19, approved. I stared at that word until the screen blurred. Approved. That was the last word I remembered before everything went dark. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in Lab C. My hand hovered above a half-disassembled sensor board. The ventilation system hummed overhead. Rain tapped against the windows of the engineering building. Mike Reynolds stood at the next bench, holding a screwdriver between his teeth, which violated at least 3 safety rules and 1 principle of civilization. My phone buzzed. Transaction alert. Apex Motors Northbridge, pending authorization, $418, 732.19. For a moment, my heart stopped, then it began again. Not gently, not normally. It slammed against my ribs like it wanted out. I picked up the phone. Same date, same time, same amount, same merchant. My second life had not started at the beginning, it had started at the transaction. Audrey's message appeared. "Baby, please don't panic, I'll explain later. I just need you to approve it right now." Then another, "Please trust me." Then another, "Derek is here, but it's not what you think." I stared at the messages, then I laughed, once, quietly. Mike looked up. He removed the screwdriver from his mouth. "What's funny?" I turned the phone toward him. He read the alert. His eyebrows climbed. $418,000, yes, at Apex Motors, yes. Please tell me Audrey is buying emergency vehicles for endangered puppies. No. Mike's expression changed. She's buying Derek the red Veyron. Yes. He narrowed his eyes. How do you know that? With horrifying certainty. I looked back at the phone. In another life, I approved it. Silence. Mike slowly placed the screwdriver on the table. Okay. That sentence is either metaphorical, spiritual, or you need a neurological consult. Probably all 3. My phone buzzed again. Audrey. Ethan, answer. The salesman needs verbal confirmation. Then another, "Please don't embarrass me." That one made me smile, not because it was funny, because it was clean. Not "Please help me," not "I'm sorry," not "I should have asked." Please don't embarrass me. Audrey never feared doing wrong as much as she feared being seen doing it. I opened the banking app. The black card was not a normal credit card. People online imagine black cards like magic keys. As if wealth is a rectangle of metal you flash at people until doors open. In reality, mine was a private client charge account tied to a family trust structure through Miller Global's banking division. My father, Daniel Miller, had made sure I had emergency access when I started at Northbridge. I hated using it. I paid tuition through a merit scholarship, lived in an ordinary apartment, drove an old truck, and dressed like a man whose laundry routine had ethical limits. I wanted people to judge my work before they judged my last name. Audrey had not known the full truth. She knew I had money. She did not know I was Daniel Miller's son. She did not know my father was the founder of Miller Global and the richest man in the country. She thought I was some quiet trust fund adjacent engineering student with a mysterious card, too emotionally attached to her to enforce limits. That was enough for her. 6 months earlier, I had added her as an authorized user. In my first life, she cried in my apartment after an internship interview in Chicago. She said her parents had frozen her allowance because she refused to follow their post-graduation plan. She said she felt trapped. She said she hated asking people for money. She said she only needed emergency access until her fellowship stipend arrived. I believed her. At first, she used it carefully: a flight change, hotel security deposit, medication, a winter coat before a conference, then dinners, then clothes, then jewelry, then networking expenses. Each time I asked, she made me feel small for noticing. "Ethan, if you trust me, why are you tracking every dollar?" Because trust is not blindness. I learned that too late in my first life. This time, I selected Audrey's profile. Authorized user, Audrey Hart. Status, active. Spending access, emergency, travel, retail, personal support, luxury purchase review, required over $25,000. Vehicle purchase, not authorized. I pressed revoke. The app asked for confirmation. I confirmed. Then I called the private banking line. The advisor answered in less than 10 seconds. Miller Private Services. this is Jonathan, this is Ethan Daniel Miller, I need Audrey Hart removed as an authorized user immediately, close her card, decline all pending transactions, add a note that no verbal approval from third parties is authorized, any further attempted use should be flagged. Jonathan asked 2 verification questions, I answered. There was a short pause, then he said, the pending authorization from Apex Motors Northbridge has been declined, the authorized user account is now closed, clean, beautiful. I looked at Mike. It's done. Mike leaned back against the bench. You shut it off? Yes. He stared at me. I have waited 3 years for emotionally responsible banking. My phone started ringing. Audrey, I let it ring, then I put the phone face down on the table. Mike looked at it. You're not answering. No. What if she says it's an emergency? It is, for Derek. Mike placed one hand over his heart. You have become frighteningly healthy. The phone rang again, then the messages came. Ethan, what did you do? This isn't funny, answer me. Derek is standing here, you're embarrassing me. I picked up the phone and typed one sentence, no, then I placed it down again. Mike read it over my shoulder and closed his eyes. Cold, efficient, minimalist. I'm proud and afraid. My phone rang again, this time, I answered. Audrey's voice exploded through the speaker. Ethan, why is the card closed? I kept my voice calm, because I closed it. A sharp breath. You had no right. It is my account. You gave me the card, for emergencies. This is important. For whom? Silence. I could hear showroom music in the background, smooth jazz, soft footsteps, the polished silence of expensive places where embarrassment echoes harder. Then Derek's voice came through, low but close. Put him on speaker. Audrey snapped. No, I said. Put me on speaker. She hesitated. That told me she knew how bad this looked. Then the sound changed, was on speaker in the middle of Apex Motors. Derek spoke first. Miller, this is pathetic. Derek, you shut off the card because you're jealous. No, then why? Because Audrey attempted to use my account to buy you a $418,000 car without authorization. Audrey said quickly, you told me I could use the card, for emergencies. Derek laughed. You rich scholarship boys always act generous until a woman stops needing you. Rich scholarship boy. That almost made me smile. At Northbridge, people had invented a strange category for me, too quiet to be poor in a normal way, too unpolished to be truly wealthy. I wore old jackets but had a card that worked in places they only visited for photos. I drove an old truck but never panicked about tuition. I did not explain the contradiction. People filled silence with what made them comfortable. Audrey filled it with access. Derek filled it with contempt. I said, Derek, do you want to purchase the car yourself? Silence. Mike covered his mouth. On speaker, Derek said, that's not the point. It is the point at a dealership. Somewhere in the background, a man coughed. The salesman, Caleb Moore. I remembered him from my first life. He was not a villain. He was a car salesman in a glass showroom who knew wealthy students lied but preferred not to kill commissions by saying so too early. Audrey's voice lowered. Ethan, please. We can talk privately. No. Her breath caught. No, you chose a public showroom. We can talk publicly. Derek said, you're making yourself look small. No, I said, I'm making the transaction clear. Audrey went quiet. There was that word again, clear. She hated it. Derek hated it more. I continued, Audrey, I am sending written notice now. Your authorized user access is permanently revoked. Any attempted use of the closed card after this call will be treated as unauthorized. Ethan, she whispered. I ended the call, then I sent the notice by text and email. Mike leaned back in his chair. I think I just heard a man lose a sports car in real time. Derek, no, Caleb, that commission died in service of justice, at Apex Motors. According to the video that reached me later, the exact moment of collapse was almost elegant. Audrey Hart stood beside a red Veyron GT Roadster with one hand resting on the hood as if she had already imagined the photographs. Derek stood near the driver's side, wearing a navy blazer, white sneakers, and the smile of a man receiving a gift he planned to call destiny. His friends Tyler and Amber were there too. Phones out, recording. Audrey had made sure there was an audience. She wanted people to see Derek receive the car. She did not want anyone to see whose account paid for it. Caleb returned from the payment desk holding the black card between 2 fingers. His expression had changed. That was the first crack Audrey noticed. Is everything okay? Caleb cleared his throat. I'm sorry, Ms. Hart. The authorization was declined. Derek's smile froze. Audrey blinked. That's impossible. Run it again. We did. Then call the issuer. We did. Her voice sharpened, and Caleb looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry, Ms. Hart, this account has been closed. The showroom went silent. Tyler lowered his phone. Amber's mouth opened. Derek turned toward Audrey. What does he mean closed? Audrey snatched the card from Caleb's hand. That's not possible, Caleb said carefully. The issuer confirmed the authorized user access has been revoked. The card is no longer active. Derek's face changed, just enough, not full anger. Yet, calculation. Audrey pulled out her phone and called me. I did not answer until I was ready. That was another change from the first life. In the first life, I answered because she called. In this life, I answered because I chose the timing. After I ended the speaker call, I sat in Lab C for 10 minutes, not because I did not know what to do, because the body needs time to accept that it has left an old trap. I closed the banking app, backed up the authorization notice, forwarded the attempted transaction alert to my personal legal folder, then I emailed Professor Harper. Subject: unauthorized card use attempt linked to Audrey Hart/Derek Walsh. Professor Harper, Audrey Hart attempted to use an authorized user card on my private account for a $418,732.19 vehicle purchase at Apex Motors Northbridge. The intended recipient appears to be Derek Walsh. I have revoked Audrey's authorized user access and declined the pending transaction. This may become relevant to any student venture, authorship, or conduct issue involving Audrey Hart, Derek Walsh, or Venture Society. I am preserving records. Best, Ethan Miller. Professor Harper replied 4 minutes later. Do not discuss privately. Collect physical card if possible. Preserve all transaction and communication records. If a public confrontation occurs, keep statements factual. Professor Harper never said, "Good job." But that email came close. Mike read it and nodded. Harper has blessed the banking exorcism. I stood. I'm going to Apex Motors. Mike grabbed his jacket. I'm driving. I can drive. You look too calm. It's suspicious. Also, I want to see Derek not buy a car. We arrived 20 minutes later. Apex Motors Northbridge had floor-to-ceiling glass, polished stone floors, and cars displayed like jewelry under museum lighting. The red Veyron sat in the center bay, low and bright and absurd. Audrey turned when I entered. Her expression moved from panic to relief to anger in less than 2 seconds. Ethan, Derek stood beside her with his hands in his pockets, trying to look casual, failing. Caleb approached me carefully. Mr. Miller, yes. He looked at the black card still in Audrey's hand. I held out my hand. Audrey did not move. I said, "The card." Her fingers tightened around it. "You're really doing this?" "You already did." Her eyes filled. "I was going to explain. You were going to buy your lover a car with my account." The word lover landed hard. Tyler made a small sound. Amber looked away. Derek stepped forward. "Watch your mouth." I looked at him. "Buy the car." His face flushed. "What? You heard me. You wanted it. She brought you here. Buy it." Derek laughed. "This is childish." "No, it's the cleanest solution," Audrey whispered. "Ethan, stop." I turned to her. "No, you wanted me involved financially. I am involved enough to close the account and collect my card. Nothing more." She looked at the floor. I held out my hand again. The card, slowly. She gave it to me. Caleb placed a small pair of scissors on the counter. I cut the black card in half. The sound was quiet. Audrey flinched anyway, maybe because it sounded like something ending. I placed the pieces on the counter. "Please note the card has been surrendered and destroyed in person." Caleb nodded quickly. "Yes, sir." Derek's voice was low. "You're enjoying this?" I turned. "No, I'm documenting it." Mike appeared behind me holding a folder because of course he had already made a folder. "He enjoys documentation slightly," Mike said. "But not this specifically." Derek glared. Mike smiled. "Hi, Derek. Still not buying the car?" Derek ignored him. Audrey stepped closer. "Can we talk outside?" "No." Her eyes filled. "Why are you being so cruel?" I laughed once. The showroom went quiet. "Cruel?" She looked wounded. I said, "Audrey, you brought another man to buy a sports car with my black card. You only called me because the account closed. And now you want privacy because the humiliation reached you instead of me." Her face crumpled. Derek snapped. "She doesn't owe you an explanation." I looked at him. "She owes me the truth." He smirked. "You couldn't handle it." "I handled the account closure well enough," Mike whispered. "Clean hit." Audrey covered her face. "Derek, stop. That was new, in my first life." She let Derek speak over me until his version became hers. This time, the card had failed early enough that blame had not yet found a stable host. Derek turned on her. You said he was wrapped around your finger. The showroom fell silent. Audrey looked at him. What? His face changed. Too late, he had said the quiet part loudly. I looked at Audrey. She looked like someone had been slapped by a sentence. Derek recovered. I mean, you said he trusted you. No, I said, you said the first version. Derek pointed at me. You set this up. You attempted a purchase. I declined it. You knew. Yes. Audrey turned to me slowly. You knew about us. Yes. Her voice broke. How long? Long enough. She began to cry. In my first life, those tears would have moved me. This time, I watched them fall and felt only exhaustion. Audrey whispered, why didn't you confront me? I just did. No, before, because I wanted to see whether you would stop before you needed my money. That sentence ended something inside her. Maybe the last version of herself where she could claim confusion. Derek grabbed his coat. This is pathetic, Mike said. Still not a payment method. Derek walked out. Audrey stared after him. He did not look back. That was the second time she saw the truth. The first was the closed account. The second was the door. Caleb asked quietly, Mr. Miller, do you need anything else from us? Yes, I said, a copy of the attempted transaction record, the purchase paperwork, and any signed buyer information listing my account as payment source. Audrey looked at me sharply. Why? Because records matter. Her face went pale. I'm not going to sue you. I did not ask. Mike opened his folder. Also, for the record, she texted him after the decline saying he was embarrassing her, not that the transaction was mistaken. Audrey whispered, Mike, he looked at her, you tried to buy Derek a supercar with Ethan's card. I have exited the politeness economy. Caleb printed the documents. Audrey stood silently beside the car. For the first time since I had known her, she looked ordinary, not ugly, not ruined, just ordinary, without confidence, without Derek, without the card, without the showroom reflecting a life she had not earned. I took the papers, then I turned to leave. Audrey reached for my sleeve. Ethan, I looked down at her hand. She let go. Smart. Can we talk later? She asked. No, please, no. Her tears fell harder. I made a mistake. I looked at the red car, then at the cut black card on the counter. No, I said. You made a purchase attempt. Then I walked out. The dealership incident spread before sunset. Of course it did. Tyler had recorded part of it. Amber had recorded more. Someone from the business school posted a clip with the caption, when the sugar boyfriend shuts off the card mid-car purchase. That version lasted 11 minutes, then the comments began asking whose card it was. Then someone noticed Audrey saying, Derek is standing here. In the texts Mike had not posted but Tyler had accidentally captured over her shoulder, and another student asked why Derek was not paying for his own car. Then a clip of Caleb saying, this account has been closed, started spreading in group chats. That phrase became the whole campus in 6 words, this account has been closed. People repeated it in dining halls, at the gym, outside the library, even in Lab C, where Mike walked in the next morning holding 2 coffees and said, in a dramatic salesman voice, I'm sorry, Mr. Miller, but this emotional account has been closed. Professor Harper, who had entered silently behind him, said, Mr. Reynolds, if you turn unauthorized financial access into a comedy routine during a conduct inquiry, I will personally make your final project defense unpleasant. Mike lowered the coffee. Understood. Then he whispered to me, worth it. Professor Harper turned to me, office, now. Her office was on the 3rd floor of the engineering building, overlooking the old quad. It smelled like coffee, paper, and controlled disappointment. She placed a folder on her desk. Inside were printed copies of my transaction alert, authorization closure notice, dealership paperwork, Audrey's texts, and a written statement from Caleb Moore. I sat down. Professor Harper said, tell me the full timeline. I did. The first alert, Audrey's messages, the closure call, the speaker conversation, the dealership visit, the card surrender, Derek's statement that Audrey said I was wrapped around her finger, Audrey admitting by silence that the car was for him. Professor Harper took notes without interrupting. When I finished, she said, this is not merely personal. I know. Good. Say why. I took a breath. Because the card access was given through a personal relationship, used without authorization, for a third-party luxury purchase, and connected to Derek Walsh, who is involved in venture society and student founder activity. It creates risk around coercion, misuse of resources, and possible leverage over my research or financial support. Professor Harper's expression softened by 1%. That was a lot for her, correct? She opened another folder. This is your current project contribution record. Review it, Adaptive Modular Diagnostics for Low-Cost Infrastructure Systems, Principal. Researcher, Ethan Miller, Faculty Advisor, Professor Elaine Harper, Prototype Review, Lily Carter, Operations Documentation, Mike Reynolds, no Audrey Hart, no Derek Walsh, no Venture Society, no External Rights. I signed it. She handed me another document, Boundary Notice, no Outside Party, Romantic Partner, Former Romantic Partner, Student Organization, Donor Affiliate, or third-party recipient may use your funds, account access, technical materials, research language, code, diagrams, or venture. Documents without written authorization. I signed that too. Professor Harper leaned back. You understand that people will say you are being dramatic. Yes, good, drama fades, record stay. The university opened a conduct and governance review that afternoon, not because Audrey had successfully purchased anything, she had not because the dealership wanted charges filed, they did not. The transaction had been declined before completion. The review opened because Northbridge had already been preparing to announce a major student venture protection initiative, and suddenly one of its most visible student ambassadors had attempted to use another student's private account for a luxury purchase benefiting a venture society officer. That was a governance problem. Derek tried to spin it immediately. He said he did not know the card belonged to me. The purchase paperwork listed Audrey Hart as authorized user and Ethan Miller as primary account. He said he believed Audrey's family was handling the payment. Amber's video caught him saying, "You said Ethan would never cut me off." He said the car was a symbolic graduation celebration, not a gift. The insurance and registration paperwork named him as intended primary driver. He said I had embarrassed Audrey out of jealousy. The banking record showed I had revoked access before arriving and had made only factual statements at the dealership. Audrey said the card had been given to her for general use. The authorized user terms showed emergency and personal support spending only, no vehicle purchase authorization, and review required for luxury charges over $25,000. Derek's father tried to soften the review. Richard Walsh had money, influence, and the habit of speaking as if administrators existed to absorb inconvenience. He called President Marsh directly. That was a mistake, because he did it 6 hours before my father's name became public. The next day was graduation. Northbridge University looked perfect, too perfect, sunlight on stone buildings, blue and gold banners across the main lawn, parents carrying flowers, students adjusting caps, faculty gathering in robes, reporters near the media section because the university had teased the largest private investment announcement in its history. Audrey arrived without Derek. That surprised people. It did not surprise me. Derek had become inconvenient. Audrey walked with 2 friends from her communications program. Her face was pale but composed. She did not look toward me at first, then she did. Our eyes met across the lawn. For a second I saw the woman from my first life, the Audrey who sat in the red car laughing as Derek drove away, the Audrey who cried later and said I had used money to keep her, the Audrey who apologized years too late without understanding what she had done. This Audrey looked away first. Derek arrived 10 minutes later, alone, wearing a dark suit and a smile too sharp to be comfortable. He walked past me. "Miller," he said. "Derek, I hope you're proud." "I'm rested." His eyes narrowed. "You think closing a card makes you powerful?" "No, it makes the account closed." Mike, standing beside me, choked on his coffee. Derek's jaw tightened. "You're not as impressive as you think." I looked toward the donor platform. "No, today I think other people will handle that part." He did not understand. That made it better. The ceremony began. Names were called, speeches were delivered, parents cried, students cheered. Audrey crossed the stage to applause that was still loud but less clean than it would have been 2 days earlier. People had seen the video, people had heard the phrase, "This account has been closed." When Derek crossed with the business graduates, applause was thinner. He noticed, that mattered to him. When my name was called, Professor Harper stood. "Ethan Miller, College of Engineering, highest distinction." The engineering section clapped hard. Mike shouted, "Authorized." President Marsh paused for half a second. Professor Harper looked like she wanted to resign from knowing us. I walked across the stage. Audrey watched me. Derek did not. To him, I was still the scholarship boyfriend with a card. After commencement, everyone moved into the alumni hall for the donor reception and senior founder showcase. This was supposed to be Derek's stage. The Venture Society table was near the front, but Derek's name had already been removed from the welcome placard pending review. That alone made his face stiffen. Audrey's strategic ambassador badge had been replaced with a plain graduate guest tag, small. Changes, big humiliation. The hall glittered with chandeliers, white flowers, champagne, and university banners. Alumni donors shook hands, student founders stood beside posters, trying to look calm while silently begging someone important to stop. A large screen near the stage read, Northbridge Future Builders Initiative, Major Investment Announcement. Mike stood beside me near the back. How long until the sky falls? Soon. Metaphorical or donor-funded, both. President Marsh took the stage. The room quieted. Thank you all for joining us on this extraordinary day for Northbridge University. Today, we are honored to announce the largest private investment in our institution's history. Derek straightened. Richard Walsh, his father, sat in the trustee section with a smile that said he expected proximity to power even when it was not his. President Marsh continued. The Miller Future Foundation, in partnership with Miller Global, will commit $2 billion over the next 15 years to establish the Northbridge Center for Applied Research, the Student Builder Protection Fund, and a new ethical venture governance program. The room erupted. Applause, gasps, reporters lifting cameras, donors whispering. Derek's face changed. Audrey turned toward the screen. Miller Global, Miller Future Foundation, Northbridge University. Then my father walked onto the stage. Daniel Miller, founder of Miller Global, chairman of the Miller Future Foundation, the richest man in the country, and my father. The room stood. Audrey froze. Derek stared at the stage like reality had become insulting. Dad took the microphone. He wore a dark suit, no tie, and the old work boots my mother had tried to replace every year since I was 15. I built my first company because someone gave me access to tools when I had no money. Dad said, support changes lives, but money and access must never become weapons. They must never become leashes. His eyes moved across the room, then found me. My son, Ethan Miller, asked to attend Northbridge without public family identification. He wanted his work judged before his name. The silence became absolute. The screen changed. Ethan Daniel Miller, founding student architect, Student Builder Protection Fund. Audrey covered her mouth. Derek's face went red, then pale. Mike whispered, and there goes the cardholder mystery. Dad continued, Ethan helped design the principles behind this fund. Those principles became more urgent this week after a student financial access incident exposed how easily trust, money, relationships, and student opportunity can be misused when boundaries are unclear. Audrey lowered her head. Derek looked toward the exit. Dad did not name them. He did not need to, he said. The Student Builder Protection Fund will support research, prototypes, ventures, and student founders. It will also require clear authorization for financial access, verified contribution records, and strict separation between personal relationships and professional ownership. Professor Harper started clapping first, then the engineering faculty, then the whole room. I walked onto the stage. Dad handed me the microphone. I looked out over the hall. Less than 24 hours earlier, Audrey had tried to use my card to buy her lover a sports car. Now she was learning that she had not been spending a boyfriend's weakness, she had been spending trust she never owned. I said, when I came to Northbridge, I wanted to know who respected work before they saw power. That experiment taught me more than I expected. No one moved. I continued, support is not ownership, love is not authorization, trust is not a blank check, and access given for care should never be used as currency for betrayal. The hall stayed silent. Every student in this fund will receive clear documentation, independent review, and protection from people who try to convert personal closeness into financial or professional entitlement. Then I said the line everyone remembered, if a person needs secrecy to use your resources, the account should already be closed. For half a second, there was silence, then applause. The engineering section first, then the students, then donors who understood where the money was flowing. Derek walked out before the applause ended. Audrey did not follow. After the announcement, the reception became chaos. Reporters wanted comments, trustees wanted reassurance, donors wanted to shake my father's hand, students wanted to know when the fund would open applications. Dad stood beside President Marsh, answering questions calmly. Mom arrived late because she hated donor receptions and loved me more than she hated crowds. She hugged me first, then she scanned the room, saw Audrey crying near a pillar, saw Derek gone, and understood enough. Mom always did. Audrey approached 20 minutes later alone. Her eyes were red, her hands shook. For once, she did not look like the campus queen. She looked like a person who had reached for someone else's life and found a locked door. Ethan, she said. I turned. She swallowed. You're Daniel Miller's son. No, I said, I'm Ethan Miller. Daniel Miller is my father." She flinched. "I didn't know." "I know, if I had known." "Stop." Her mouth closed. I said, "That sentence will only make this worse." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I wasn't trying to steal from you. You tried to buy Derek a car with my card. I thought you'd approve it." "That is worse." She cried harder. "I know." I waited. She wiped her face. "I'm sorry." "That's too broad." Her face twisted. "I'm sorry I used your card without permission." Still nothing. "I'm sorry I tried to give Derek something with your money." Still nothing. "I'm sorry I thought your trust was something I could spend." There it was, ugly, specific, true. I nodded once. "Thank you for saying it correctly." She cried quietly. "Did you ever love me?" "Yes." "Then why did you close the account so fast?" "Because love is not authorization." That sentence broke her. She covered her mouth and sobbed. Derek sent one message through Tyler that night: "Tell Miller real men don't hide behind family money." Mike replied before I could stop him: "Real men don't need another man's card to buy a car." Derek blocked him. Mike was extremely proud. The formal review closed 2 weeks later. Audrey received no criminal charge because the transaction failed and I did not pursue one, but she lost university ambassador privileges, donor recommendation access, and eligibility for several graduate leadership programs tied to ethical conduct review. Derek lost his Venture Society presidency permanently. His postgraduate finance placement requested documentation, then withdrew his offer. His father tried to protest. The Miller Future Foundation paused all discussions involving committees where Richard Walsh held influence until conflict of interest safeguards were approved. That got attention, money talks, but clean policy signs. Richard Walsh recused himself from student venture governance. By the end of the month, Professor Harper was appointed chair of the new Student Builder Integrity Board. Mike called it Harper with a sword. Professor Harper said, "There is no sword." Mike whispered, "That's what makes it scarier." The first policy added to the fund handbook was simple: authorized financial access must be documented, limited, revocable, and separate from personal or romantic obligation. The second: no student may solicit, pressure, or exploit another student's financial resources through undisclosed romantic, sexual, or social relationships connected to student venture activity. The third: love is not authorization. That one was not written exactly that way. I wanted it. Professor Harper refused. She said policy should not sound like a breakup tattoo. Mike agreed with me. That did not help. Audrey disappeared from campus for most of the summer. When she finally asked to meet, I ignored the first message, then the second. The third was different. "I'm not asking for another chance. I just want to apologize correctly." That made me pause. Professor Harper said closure was overrated but acceptable if done in public with witnesses and exits. So I met Audrey at a coffee shop near campus. Public table, daylight, no Derek, no black card, no private room. Audrey arrived in jeans and a gray sweater, no makeup, no diamond earrings. She looked tired, not tragic, tired. She sat across from me and wrapped both hands around a paper coffee cup. "I'm not here to ask for anything," she said. "Good." She flinched. "I deserve that." I waited. "I keep replaying the dealership." "So do I." She looked up. "You do?" "Yes." Her eyes filled. "I thought you'd say it meant nothing." "It meant enough." She nodded slowly. "I wanted him to look at me like I was powerful. That was honest." I said nothing. She continued, "Derek made me feel like if I could give him things, I belonged in his world, and with you, I felt safe taking because you never made me feel embarrassed for needing help. Until you became embarrassed by the person helping." She closed her eyes. "Yes." Silence. Then she whispered, "When the salesman said the account was closed, I was angry at you first." "I know." Then Derek looked at me like I had failed him. Her voice broke, and I realized he wasn't embarrassed because I betrayed you. He was embarrassed because I couldn't pay. That was the first useful thing she had said. I nodded. She cried. "I'm sorry I had to see that before I cared about what I did to you." "Me too. Can you forgive me?" "Not today." She nodded like she expected it. "Do you hate me?" I thought about the first life, the approved charge, the red car, the crash, the allegations, the lost fellowship, the years of explaining that a purchase I approved under emotional pressure was not proof that I deserved to be erased. Then I looked at Audrey now. In this life, she had not destroyed me, because I had not let the transaction complete. "No," I said, "I'm done giving you access to that much of me." She looked down. That hurt her more than hate would have. Good. Not because I wanted her to suffer, because consequence is supposed to touch the person who created it. Audrey left Northbridge that fall for a graduate program in another state. Before she left, she sent me a letter, not a text, a real letter. Ethan, I know you may never reply. I don't expect you to. I am leaving Northbridge next week. I wanted to say this without crying in front of you again, for a long time. I told myself the dealership was one bad decision, then I told myself Derek pressured me, then I told myself you had given me the card, so I misunderstood the boundary. Those explanations are easier than the truth. The truth is that I treated your trust like something I owned because you loved me. I thought love meant you would keep approving whatever I needed, even when what I needed was another man's approval. When Caleb said the account was closed, I felt humiliated. Now I think I should have felt exposed. You were right to close it, you were right to take back the card, you were right to make the record clean. I regret losing you, but more than that, I regret becoming someone who thought your love was a payment method. I'm sorry, Audrey. I read it twice, then placed it in a folder. Not evidence anymore. History. Some apologies cannot repair damage, but they can mark the place where someone finally stops lying to herself. That has value, limited value, but value. Years passed. The Student Builder Protection Fund grew into one of the strongest programs at Northbridge. Students with good ideas and bad family money finally had access to tools. Students with rich partners and unclear boundaries finally had to write things down. Students who thought charisma was equity learned quickly that Professor Harper disagreed. The first cohort had 27 projects. Some succeeded, some failed honestly, which I respected. One student tried to list his girlfriend as co-founder because she had kept him motivated emotionally. Professor Harper asked, did she write code, design hardware, validate customers, build operations, file documentation, or contribute capital under signed terms? He said, no, but she believed in me. Professor Harper said, then thank her, do not give her authorship. Mike called that romance-safe governance. Professor Harper banned the phrase survived. My own company grew too. Adaptive Modular Diagnostics became Miller Diagnostics after graduation. Then Atlas Maintenance Systems after merging with Lily Carter's sensor hardware platform. Lily had built what my software needed: durable, low-cost, field reparable sensor modules that could survive conditions. Most polished prototypes only mentioned in risk slides. The first time she reviewed my system, she circled 3 assumptions and said, these will break in cold weather drift. I stared at the paper. She added, sorry, no. I said, that's useful. She studied me. People don't usually like correction that much. I'm learning to value the people who correct the work instead of flattering the person. She nodded. That sounds like a lesson. With scars, yes, good, scars are data. Mike, listening from behind the coffee machine, whispered, I fear and respect her. By year 1, we had 3 municipal pilots. By year 2, 12. By year 3, a major infrastructure firm offered to acquire us for $40 million. I refused. Dad asked if I was refusing because of pride. Dad had built Miller Global from machine shop contracts into the largest private technology company in the country. He knew the difference between courage and ego better than anyone. No, I said, the model is early, the market is larger. Dad smiled. Good answer. Mom said, does the office have proper food? That was her due diligence. We improved the snacks. Miller Global invested in our Series A under the same terms as outside investors. No special control, no hidden rescue, clean board, clean cap table, clean records. I insisted on that because I had lived through what happened when personal access blurred professional ownership. Mike became operations lead after trying to give himself the title Chief Boundary Officer. We rejected it. He printed business cards anyway. Professor Harper joined the advisory board and terrified 3 separate investors into reading technical appendices. Lily became co-founder after the merger because the sensor architecture was essential. We documented everything properly, not because we distrusted each other, because trust deserves records that protect both sides. By year 5, Atlas crossed $1 billion valuation. The press called us an overnight success. Mike taped the headline beside a wall of photos showing burnt boards, cracked casings, flooded field units, failed dashboards, and one prototype held together with zip ties and what he called emotional tape. Overnight, he said, very restful. By year 7, Atlas signed a global infrastructure monitoring contract. The valuation crossed $10 billion. At the launch event, a reporter asked me, is it true your company's earliest ethics policies came from a personal financial betrayal in college? Mike, standing off stage, mouthed, say the car. I did not. I said, the earliest lesson was simple, access must be limited by authorization, not emotion. systems fail when boundaries are assumed instead of documented. That is true in infrastructure, finance, companies, and relationships. Professor Harper later said the answer was acceptable. That was her version of applause. Audrey sent another letter after the global contract. Ethan, I saw the interview. When you said access must be limited by authorization, I knew exactly where that sentence came from. I wish I had not been part of the lesson. I am married now, not to anyone rich, not to anyone famous. He teaches high school history. I told him the whole story before we got engaged because I did not want to build another life on a polished version of myself. He asked me if I still loved you. I told him no, but I said I still regret who I was with you. That is the truth. The part that stays with me is not that you became successful, it is that you loved me when I was still capable of becoming better, and I chose to become someone who used you. I thought your trust meant you would always approve the charge. When the salesman said the account was closed, I thought my life was collapsing. Now I think it was the first honest sentence I had heard in months. I am sorry, Audrey. I read the letter in my office after everyone had gone home. Rain moved against the windows. For a second, I saw Apex Motors again. The red Veyron, the cut black card, Audrey's hand on my sleeve, Derek walking out without looking back, Caleb saying, "This account has been closed." I folded the letter and placed it with the first one. Then I walked down to the lab floor. Lily was arguing with a hardware engineer about casing tolerances. Mike was trying to convince finance that a coffee machine could be classified as infrastructure. Professor Harper was reviewing a field failure report with a red pen like she was preparing for war. Life had become full, not perfect, full. That was better. On the 10th anniversary of the Student Builder Protection Fund, Northbridge invited me back to speak. Same alumni hall, same chandeliers, different students, different fears, same old human talent for confusing access with love. I stood at the podium and looked at the packed room. Then I said, "Let me begin with the least romantic sentence you will hear this week. Access is not consent." The students laughed. Then they realized I was serious. Good. Some of you will build things with people you love, some with people you want to impress, some with people who have more money, status, beauty, confidence, or access than you. Be generous, be kind, help each other, but understand this clearly: trust without boundaries becomes an account someone else may try to spend. The room went quiet. Do not give unlimited access because you are afraid limits will make love look smaller. Real love survives limits, exploitation hates them. A student raised his hand during Can Day. What if someone has already crossed that line? Close the account, I said. A ripple of recognition moved through the room. I continued, that may mean a literal account, it may mean a shared folder, a password, a project role, a relationship, a promise, a habit, or the part of you that keeps approving harm because you want the person hurting you to choose better next time. No one laughed now. Close it cleanly. Document it, then build something that cannot be bought with the trust you took back. After the talk, I walked alone to the parking lot. A red sports car passed on the street outside campus. Different model, different driver. For a second, I heard the old notification, pending authorization, then the other sentence, the one that saved me: this account has been closed. People still tell the story like it was about money. They say my campus queen girlfriend tried to use my black card to buy her lover a sports car, and the salesman said the account was closed. They say the best part was that she did not know I was the richest man's son. That is the entertaining version, the dramatic version, the version with a clean punchline and a rich boy reveal. The real version is colder. Audrey thought trust meant permanent access. Derek thought my silence meant weakness. They both thought money was something they could route through me without consequence. They were wrong. The card closed, the charge died, the car stayed in the showroom. Derek walked away empty-handed. Audrey finally saw that a man who loves you can still revoke your access when you use his trust to reward someone else. That was the lesson. Not that I was rich, not that my father was powerful, not that Derek could not afford the car. The lesson was simpler. Love is not a blank check, trust is not a black card, and the moment someone tries to spend your loyalty on another person, the account should already be closed.